Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday-ish Central Time, then it's time for Warhammer Weekly After Dark. That's right. Once again, we've got a little After Dark spectacular. I apologize for the lateness of the show today, but yeah, I was traveling all day. I just got in a few minutes ago, and as Queen famously said, the show must go on. So, joining me this week, as always, is my own little Wardroth beetle. I ride him around. It's Tom. How you doing, Tom?
It's too late. I don't have a good response. Like I
We've
got nothing.
we've gone beyond pithiness. That's fine. Also joining us this week, our esteemed colleague who was willing to stay up very late for us. It's MC1 Gamer Mitch. How you doing this evening, buddy?
I'm doing well. Always happy to answer the red phone when you call.
Absolutely. We've got a direct line in. It's much like Commissioner Gordon. It's basically the same thing. Yes. So this week we are going to talk about the shape of things to come. That is to say, with the release of this book right here, I think that we are seeing the future of the shape of things to come for Age of Sigmar, and we're looking at a vastly different year two than what we had year one, and we're going to get into that. But first, of course, as always, we're going to start with the news. So, Tommy, kick us off. What do we got?
I think they're gonna catch on to us someday, Vince.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Do it. We're doing a shape of things to come show. Here we go.
Yes.
Okay. The news. So we have a couple of tournament announcements. Hooves of Doom is helping out with a tournament. Active Imagination. It's at the active words. Imagination in Albuquerque, and we will have linked the info and for the tourney below. And then additionally, there's David Griffin is doing a one-day AOS event in October 15th in Huntsville, Alabama, at Redstone Rumble. And so we'll have the links, or we'll have the information for that stuff below if you guys want to check it out. So, yeah.
Yes, very exciting. Go check out both those tourneys. We got a couple awesome people there. I had the good chance to meet David at Adepticon last year. Super great guy, very nice. And you should also be following him on Twitter, by the way, for announcements on that. So he's under at Nash of Sigmar. Yeah, that should be very cool. And by the way, as always, if other people have tournament events, they're running them. Doesn't matter if it's a small local event, whatever, or you've got a big thing going on. Shoot us a note, put it in the comments, or reach out to me through email, and we'll talk about it during the news. What were you going to say, Tom? I'm sorry.
I think he froze.
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I'm back. Okay.
Welcome back.
So, relatedly, before we move on to the next step of the news, Vince, you...
Yeah, I think we're having a little connection problem with Tom.
Oh, good old Tom with his good old connection tonight. This is going to be a banner show. I can tell already. And he's got no excuse. He's at home. There should be internet. Let's see if he's back.
I think is his buddy Jonah stepping on the plug?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just he must have kicked the plug. Yeah. Well, as Tom doesn't seem to be moving, I'm sure he'll rejoin us in a moment. I will carry on with some of the big news. So, obviously, all the Sylvaneth released. Now, Mitch, have you jumped in on any of the Sylvaneth? Did you pick anything of the new stuff up?
Oh yes. I mean, I've already had a bunch of Sylvaneth stuff previously built. I actually submitted to the PMP I would say 98% complete. Obviously, your feedback as well as others made me feel I have to go and do another pass at it. But I had made 32 dryads, and I picked up another 15 of them because why not? So I have 5 various treemen. I have a Spirit of Duthru, 2 Tree Lords, and 2 Tree Lord Ancients. And I just got this past week Alarielle. So I haven't picked up any of the other units yet. That's definitely going to be on my radar. But I've been building out a couple of lists. I did a video just yesterday with a 2,000 list structure, but there's a couple of local stores doing it at different levels, and some of them are doing it all levels, 1,000, 2,000, 2,500. So I need to pick up a few more things like the Revenants. I want to pick up like the Bowman. the Monstrous Infantry Bowman. But Alarielle is what I'm really excited about. So planning on showing that one off. Really want to go to town on that.
Absolutely. There's been so many people sharing their already painted Alarielles on Twitter, and it's killing my soul a little bit that I've had no hobby time. She's sitting on the shelf back there, and I'm not going to start with her anyways. We'll talk about in hobby time what I am working on, or and by working I mean going to try desperately to do for the one day I'm home in between traveling and again. But I went all in on those Kurnoth Hunters, man. Those big, the mini tree Monstrous Infantry. They are just sweet as all get out. And I'm still not sure I have enough. Like I think I went in for 3 boxes, and I'm like, I might need some more of these.
There's a great battalion scroll that you need 3 units with. I think a Spirit of Duthu. It's a great option to even work in conjunction with one of the other good battalions. We won't go into that. There's been a lot of analysis on Sylvaneth. I'm sure you want to go bypass that, but yeah, I'm very excited. Even for hobby time, I'll share what I'm doing, which is going to be a big deal, something very special and very needed for a Sylvaneth army, but I'll save that for later.
All right, we'll save it. Very good. All right, so Tom is clearly having some fun internet stuff. He'll rejoin us in a moment.
Okay.
So let's move on. All right, also we have the starter set coming, right? So this little starter set, it's new. It's an even lower sort of buy-in, and I love this idea, this starter set, because this is showing off what Age of Sigmar can do that you can play with almost nothing. Like its buy-in is so low. We've been talking about since the beginning for the past year lowering the barrier of entry, and this is the proof in that pudding. You got 2 Retributors, 3 Liberators, and then you got 5 Blood Reavers and 3 Blood Warriors, right? So it's just a super mini version of the original, sort of big starter box, right? As people pointed out, and that's going to clock in at 33 US. I don't know what its prices are around in
great price
parts of the world. Yeah, it's really not bad for 13 minis. It's not a bad deal. Everybody's who bought the starter set is gonna buy it to finish out their Retributor unit, because that'll give you the full 5. I don't know what you then do with the extra 3 Liberators. Somebody pointed out you just convert them into characters. Like you hang other bejangles on them and turn them and put wings on them or whatever, and turn them into Venators and Zeros and everything, and you basically make it a character pack along with your Retributors to finish it off. And I don't think that's a terrible idea. A lot of my characters were made out of Liberators or Retributors or stuff like, or Prosecutors or whatever.
You can get the extra bits pretty much for free, and with some of your other kits that you've got. And if you really need something special, there's plenty that you could find on auction sites or barter sites. So it's not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I mean, the real thing to me is it's just such a nice, low, simple buy-in. Teaches you how to play the game. Here's some units. Here's how we play. Here's what War Scrolls mean. Did you see the little War Scroll cards
yes,
you get
I did.
with it?
I like those. I like the idea of printing them out, of the others out, and laminating them. But I like that they kind of it's something similar to what I've been doing with the Marvel miniature game that just recently came out, where all the cards come in the blister packs. Yep. Everybody that's doing it is laminating them, and I laminated 30 of these things, and now I can see doing the same thing with War Scrolls. I mean, the app is nice, but there's also something nice about having right in your hand, flipping through your War Scrolls and seeing it right there, especially at those rare times when the app doesn't work very well.
So let me ask you this question, okay? Let's say they made a pack of these you could buy for your army, okay? And they were that size, which for people who haven't seen it, they're maybe about this big, right? Kind of like a third sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper, I guess is how I would describe it, right? So you could get kind of 3 of them on a sheet of paper-ish, roughly. If they made a pack of those for your army, right, or your faction or whatever, they made them in faction packs, right? And let's say they sold them for some reasonable amount of money. Let's call it $10, $8, $10, something like that, okay? Would you pick them up?
Maybe, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to go back to X-Wing when it first came out. I was one of the early adopters in my area, and X-Wing is pretty big right around here now, and I got out, so it's kind of ironic, and I'm looking to get back in, too. But I was one of the first people. There's one other person that I knew in all the shops that I go to that was playing the game, and people were flabbergasted when I was the one guy playing that also had the acrylic tokens. I had these really cool looking acrylic tokens, one set for Empire, one set for the Rebels. And those types of things really appeal to me. I like the tokens for Age of Sigmar as well. I like the idea if they were acrylic or if they were something that maybe was a nice piece of paper, nicely printed that I could laminate, that I could use that way. If it's on cardboard, which, by the way, if you look at some of the summer campaign giveaways, a lot of that stuff is cardboard. I don't know if I do it as if it's cardboard because that's kind of flimsy. It'll fall apart. It'll wither away pretty quickly. But what I would do is I'd take good color pictures of it or find good color pictures of other people who might have gotten it, and I'd then print it out and laminate it. But if they make it in a good material, I'll pick those up, and I'll pick them up for just about every faction or sub-faction that I play, because why not?
Right. So like if it was a heavy glossy cardstock or something.
Absolutely.
Right?
That would be the minimal that I would probably want. I wouldn't want it to be on a thick cardboard.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah, I agree, actually. I mean, I know it's silly because you're paying for something you have free right here, right? But at the same time, I'm not a fan of scrolling through my phone. Like, it's fine in a pinch, but I'm an old man and I like a physical product. I can't help myself.
I don't really scroll through the phone. I have it as a backup. I use my my tablet. But even my tablet, anybody who's used the app is great. I don't want to discourage. I want to encourage people to use the app. But every once in a while, even though you don't need to be online for it, it seems like it's cycling when you go to a particular war scroll. There's nothing suckier than being in the middle of a game. And look, I think we reasonably know our armies, but sometimes you want to find out the exact wording on something because you want to be fair to your opponent and tell them what's going on. They may not know. You want to be able to pull it up. And if it's on a piece of technology, you want it to work. And a piece of paper is always going to work.
That's a good point. You're not wrong there. That it is. Paper is dependable.
Yes, you heard it here on this show.
That's right.
MC1 Gamer says paper is dependable. Put that on tomorrow's headline.
There you go. So next up, what do we got? We've got the bone splitters Battletome coming out, right? And so this doesn't look like we have any new units, at least as near as we can tell. Though, well, I shouldn't say it that way. New models. There's probably new units. Like, for example, the big Stabba guys seem to be their own unit now. Like, they're just going to run around and stab people with a giant spear, I guess. So that'll be fun. But yeah, so the Savage Orcs are getting their own Battletome release, right? And this is going to tie into what we're going to talk about here a little later. But we're rolling this out fast and furious. Right?
I love it. I love the pace too. I mean, literally, the Sylvaneth book is this week, and they already are announcing the next one. And I cannot wait to see what comes after that. I mean, there's a couple that are right on my radar that I'm just chomping at the bit, waiting to see them release so I can see what I'm going to do with the forces I already have. This is a great one. I'd love to see them do even more of this stuff. I love the repurposing of existing kits. We've talked about that with the Flesh Eater Courts.
Yep.
I would like them to even go further. I'd like them to have more units that maybe they just release a sprue. Just an arm sprue, a weapon sprue, a couple of add-ons of pieces of chinks of armor, and maybe head options. It could just be one small sprue that you can add on to a unit that you buy that's another box set. That would be great even, just because there's more things you can do with the existing product. I think it's fantastic.
I'm with that totally, and I agree. I don't know how often we'd see they've done that kind of thing. Some obviously, like Forge World's made a cottage industry of that, right? Of having the additional sort of sprue options for various things. Turn your mark something armor into the mark something else armor. Turn this tank into this other tank, right? So and clearly that stuff they can't keep it in stock, right? Like if you've ever been to a convention where Forge World's there, it's just a line of people there constantly from exhibitional open to close, just buying these add-ons for their kits or whatever, right? So I think it could be absolutely something something that continues, and I'd go in for it. Depending on what it was. I think the closest thing we saw so far was the shoulder pad and shield and sort of heraldry clam pack that came out for the Stormcast, right?
Yeah. That was nice. If you were into Stormcast, you'd be pretty happy about that, right?
Yeah. So, like, my question is, why wouldn't we see that for more stuff that would exactly like that? Because that's all you're talking about, really, right? Like, it's just you have some extra options that you could easily slot onto the existing kits.
Think
And
of
you're
how many armor sets have shoulder pads that are like almost like the Space Marines. When I look at, for instance, the dwarves, all the different factions of dwarves, the newer kits, for instance, Iron Drakes, Iron Breakers, Hammerers, Longbeards, they all have their own shoulder pads.
sure.
Think of the new stuff they could bring with just new shoulder pads.
Yeah, or shields or
Shields.
banners or there's just so many easy
Absolutely.
swaps that don't require you to get out, the knife or whatever in any way. We're just talking about literally gluing on a different piece.
But I don't think that's what this release is going to be. But it does hearken to, back to that, and I think that we might be seeing at least more of that stuff forward. I love the ability to. It makes me think that I should buy a box and just save it for some things.
Yep. So Larry Barba asked, do we think that they'll introduce cross-race battalions like Sylvaneth Tome in the new, sort of Savage Orc release that's coming up?
Oh yeah, I absolutely. That is the beginning of. First of all, and I made a comment about this in the video that I did yesterday. I know you're on the road; you probably had a chance to see it, but I mentioned it. I went through all the different battalion war scrolls that were in the Sylvaneth, and this is a peek into what we're going to see going forward. And absolutely, the theme, we're looking forward and trying to get a peek at the future. A lot of these were not the kinds of battalions that you would take in an all Sylvaneth force, because a lot of the bonuses that you would get already existed. Like some of the battalions give you the ability to move through from forest to forest. But if you're an all Sylvaneth force, you already get that. So why would you care? It is building out a partial force of a greater order army list, which would include partially Sylvaneth and maybe something else. And then there's one of the battalions that's part Stormcast and part Sylvaneth. Of course, we're going to see more of that stuff. It makes sense. It also encourages people to buy different armies and more armies. And the idea that you have to stay just within the Battletome, yeah, you can buy the Battletome, but the Battletome includes those things that allows you to actually make a more diverse list. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a fantastic thing. It gives you so much more flexibility. And if you're ever bored of what you're playing and you want to mix it up a little bit, the combined battalion is the best way to do it.
Oh, totally agreed. Totally agreed. Especially in the world where we have these new allegiance abilities where you can declare to a faction, right? Once you're under the order banner, there is no reason why you're not going to see more of this stuff coming, because it's utilizing the tech that Age of Sigmar has, right? Like we've said this 1,000 times, the old army distinctions are gone. They're broken down. They've been replaced by these new faction lines, and the factions are small enough in most cases that, one, you could do it straight out. Like, you can play an all Sylvaneth army and feel good about that. Just fine. Like, I'm excited to put mine together, and I'll definitely just be rocking tree people onto the tree people led by a very attractive woman who didn't skip leg day onto the field. But at the same time, I love the idea of being able to mix it up with the other order forces and have something that speaks to that, right? Because it's inspiring for you to be like, well, I mean, I could, because I already have a Stormcast army. Yeah, why not put that on the table sometime, right? But to other people, they might go out and pick up some of those units or something.
Yeah, you might only have to pick up a box set,
right?
I mean, or not even an elaborate army. You might only have to pick up a unit and a character. Right. I mean, what's in that combined battalion? I think it's one unit and a guy and a Dracoth. And I think that's it, if I remember correctly. And
yeah, it sounds right.
That's the starter set, actually, right. From the old starter set. You could have that in there, and it's not that hard to find it if you wanted to buy it individually. That kind of stuff doesn't mean you have to buy an entirely new army. You could that little flavor enhancement on an existing army for a far less investment. And then, of course, if you want to flush that out and make it its own independent army, have at it. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, so let's see. Moving on. We got the new Realm of Battle board coming now. This has been something that's these Realm of Battle boards. Great. I mean, like, this is something, this is the kind of thing that that Tom would be better to speak to, because he loves this type of crap. he loves the realm of battle boards. For me personally, you know where I stand on this. I couldn't care less, but because it's just never interested me. I don't like them. I don't. But I know there's a lot of people who are excited for them. What do you think about the new realm of battle board?
You know, I'm usually very positive about things, but when I'm negative, I'm all in. And I've never cared about the realm of battle boards for a variety of reasons. The first is that it never seems to fit right. There's that obvious, division between the different plates, and you really have to do a lot of work on this battle board to not make it smooth. You know, the little hills that are there, they're always there. You may move the different sections around, but you're always going to know that there's a hill or an incline or something that's, the topography is pretty universal. And I prefer a different type of a board experience. But you have to go really very far to flock this thing appropriately, so that when you're on those little inclines, your models don't slide down. I've been in a number of places where they don't go the extra mile. Maybe they paint over it a little bit, dry brush it, but it's very slick. And I don't like the feel of being on that board. What I like is, and again, I love various different types of battle mats. I did a couple of videos on them a while back, and I won't go through the whole thing, but the one thing I've really been into lately is battle mats, the mouse pad type battle mats. And if you're going to get a permanent structure like you would need for a battle board, you're going to build a table that's going to be 6x4 or 8x4 or whatever. And if you're going to do that, I'd rather have an insert, where you can pull out one particular type of battle mat. That's, I have a bunch of these, and they're portable too. You're not going to bring your realm of battle board around with you to a game store, but I can hook one of these, one of these things in a case, throw it in the back of the car and put it over my shoulder with my army and whatever else I'm bringing. And it rolls up, and it stores away pretty easily. But if I had a permanent structure, I could just roll that out inside that game table I have, and that's it. I'd rather have that than the realm of battle board. I don't get it. I never really enjoyed playing on it. And if the people that like it, more hats off to you. But I'd rather play in a different type of environment. You could put a lot of other things down on a flat surface to really give it, a lot of curve and a lot of changes in the topography. And that battle board is always going to be what it is. Each one of those plates is what it is.
Yep. No, I totally agree. And it's not an anti-terrain thing, because I love the idea of filling the board with terrain. That's, again, one of the strengths of AOS. But my problem is some of those realm of battle boards actually make it even harder to get a lot of terrain on there, right? Because you've got those existing hills and curves and stuff on the board, and that's always going to be there. Whereas if you have the mouse pad, as you said, style sort of battle mat, well, you can put whatever you want over it, right? Because it's just a flat surface you can lay down. You can just pack that thing to the gills with terrain if you're so inclined, and who cares? So yeah, I'm with you. Portability, ease of use, ease of play, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
How much are they going in for now? How much are they?
I think they're still like 300 or something ish. I haven't seen the price on the new one yet.
You could get 3 mouse pad, maybe 4, depending on when you go to mouse pad, high quality picture battle mats, rolled up battle mats, 6x4 for that price.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. All right. So, hey, if you're interested in it, throw it in the comments. I want to know if people are actually interested in this thing. I would say for me, it's that one's a skip for sure, but hey, whatever you like. All right. So final little piece of news that I wanted to announce. So friend of the show, Tyler Mengel. I'm sure many people out there in the audience know him well. Tyler is starting one of his annual painting competitions right now, his Season of War painting competition. He's got some great prize support. Specifically, one of the prizes he is giving away is a new Alarielle. How about that?
Nice.
So you can win. I love his prize support for this. So his prize support is a Nagash, an Archaon, and a new Alarielle. So you can win all the big boys. Or you can't win all of them because you only win one.
What happened to the orc guy on the Maw Crusher?
I guess we didn't have a space for him in this contest. Next time he runs 2 a year. Don't worry, I'm sure we'll fit in Gordrag next time. So if you'd like to enter a little fun painting competition and support Tyler and Mango Minis, and you want a chance to win one of those big awesome kits, hey, $150 free mini sounds pretty awesome to me for something you were probably going to paint anyways. So like if you're watching this show, hopefully you're painting something right now. So I'll put the link down there below so you can check out the rules for the painting contest. It's really very simple. Tyler's a good dude, and it's good. There's both a judged and sort of people's choice category. So you know, get into it and get yourself a chance to win something pretty sweet. I know I wouldn't mind a second Alarielle. I don't know what I would do with her. I'd convert the heck out of her. But yeah, why not? I'll tell you what I really want. I want a second Archaon because I want to make a Slaanesh Archaon, but I'm still trying to piece together what that means. So I've got the Tzeentch Archaon. I've seen the Khorne Archaon, and I've seen a Nurgle Archaon, but I haven't seen anybody do the Slaanesh Archaon yet. So
you're going to have one for each of the Chaos Gods? Nice.
Well, you know, we'll start out with the two. No, I would never own a Nurgle one. That is never going to happen. I mean, we know that. All right. So that's all the news this week that we've got. Obviously, we're on the border of a lot of exciting stuff here in the next couple months. It's gonna be good times. So, looking forward to a lot more stuff. I want to know what's rolling after the Bone Splitters, like you said. Like it's just in my mind, this is just gonna keep rolling. 40K at this point to me is just slight interruptions in the middle of an awesome Age of Sigmar release schedule. No offense to anybody playing 40K, because I do want them to get their fun and cool releases too.
Yeah, we complement each other.
Exactly. All right. So let's go to some pick of the week. So Mitch, do you have a pick of the week for the people out there?
I think it might have been mentioned before, but given that it's Sylvaneth, I want to stick with the Sylvaneth theme. There have been some, I can't even point to one, but there have been a few that maybe you already know that have been on your radar of the most amazing paint jobs that people have done already for Alarielle. And They are so inspiring. And obviously, Warhammer TV on YouTube has already released a how-to. I have already bought a whole bunch of additional paints I didn't have before. I plan to follow that paint by numbers. I'm not qualified enough yet to kind of go on my own and follow my own paint scheme. But I just want to make sure that she looks fantastic on the board, the same way I'd want any other major centerpiece. I am amazed at how good and also how quickly people have already painted her up in just amazing quality. So yeah, look for those. If you have any of those, I don't know, I'm sure you've seen them. I think you've already mentioned them, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yeah, there's been several coming around. So Wayne Kemp of the other half of Heelanhammer is moving along very swiftly with his. Kelly, she's Kelfrey on Twitter. A fantastic painter. I've seen her Sylvaneth army in person. She was also at Adepticon. She had a beautiful Sylvaneth army she competed with there. GW actually sent her an Alarielle early to let her paint it. So that's how she got it, more or less done by Monday. They were sharing hers. Like she already had finished photos.
See, that's a secret that gave it away, man.
She really is a great painter. She's just totally focused on the hobby and just does amazing work. She's fantastic. If you saw her Gaunt Summoner that was shared on the GW Facebook page recently, she is just fantastic in the work she does. Her basing for Silver Tower was just, mind-blowingly good. So I'll throw her Twitter down there. But it's basically just at Kelfrey, KELFREI, and you can see her very awesome Alarielle that she finished. But there's a bunch of them circling around, and I'm jelly. What this tells me is that when I do mine in a couple weeks, and it's going to be a couple weeks because I just know how my schedule is going to be over the next couple weeks, I'm gonna have to knock it out of the park. Like famously, I would get these kits and start on them like that night, right, and like have them done the next day. Like I did my Archon. My Archon was a 26-hour painting marathon starting at like 10 p.m. the day it released or something, then releasing at 10 p.m. the next 10 p.m. midnight the next day. But I don't want to do Alarielle first. That's the key. I want to get into the Sylvaneth. I'm saving Alarielle. I got to master my Sylvaneth scheme and then get into Alarielle.
Have you picked a painting scheme yet?
I have, yeah. After much consternation and discussion and hours of Googling trees, real trees, not tree men, like just staring at trees on the internet, and also looking, of course, at a lot of painted inspiration. I've got a scheme I'm very excited for, so we'll see how it works out. I think it's going to be great, but I haven't even put the color onto one mini yet. That'll come up during hobby time.
All right.
All right, so my pick of the week. I have a sad pick of the week, but it's an important pick of the week. And what I would like to direct everybody to is Reef Beast Man, truly one of the great senior fellows of the elder statesmen of our Warhammer community on YouTube. Obviously, Reefy went into retirement, started a new channel called Reefy in Retirement. And Reef, if you watched his stuff, you know that there was a very constant companion he had on his channel, Martin, who played the Tomb Kings. And here's the thing. Reef was my window into this world. I am on YouTube right now. You're watching me talk about this because of Reef. Okay. When I started getting into YouTube and realized that there were people doing Warhammer content on YouTube several years back, 3 years ago plus whatever, it was Reef's channel that I discovered. And it was his attitude with Martin that the two of them playing their games, talking, and just sort of having fun and you know, jiving at each other. They're very like, you know, straight man and sort of comedian routine that they had, very Abbott and Costello, that got me into finding everybody else's channels, to finding Malorian and Once Bitten and Ant. All those people were found because I started with Reef and Martin. And sadly, this week, we've lost a great Tomb King as Martin passed away. And the community is lesser for it because he was a great person. He produced and helped Reef produce so much amazing content. And obviously, it's a tough time for Reef to lose such a good friend. So what I would ask everybody out there to do is to, I'm going to post the video down below where he talks about it. What Reef is going to do is take the comments that people leave for Martin and the well wishes and package them all up and give them to Martin's wife, who survives him. And, you know, just as to show how many other lives out there of all these weird nerds in the world that he touched. And it's absolutely true. So go there. If you watched Reef, if you watched Martin, go there, leave a comment, you know, leave a well wish for Reef, leave a word of encouragement for Martin's family in this very tough time, something like that. It's made me think a lot about the nature of this community because I do consider Reef a very close friend, and he and I have talked on many occasions. And I'm sad that I didn't get to the UK to see Martin before, you know, he passed. It's tragedy.
That's what I left with him. I had already told my wife that, and my plan was to, you know, make my way out to Europe in the next few years. And I already told my wife, you know, there's a few people when we make our way to the UK, I've got to meet. He's one of them. Yep. And I echo a lot of what you said. They have a very like mind to mine. They are, just to add on to what you said, we have a connection in this community, a lot of us, to varying degrees. But one thing that it's amazing is just being able to peer through this window. And this is really like a window, the screens that we have. They're really like windows. And it's amazing how much you can get to know people and learn about them. Even though you only have this kind of view of them in most cases. And we're lucky enough sometimes to meet some of these people. I also have that regret, just like you, that I never got a chance to go meet Martin. And, you know, it pains me also. And, you know, my deepest sympathies to him and his family, and also to Reef for losing somebody so close to him. But it tells you a lot about somebody. This is not about us and how we feel in our sorrow. It's about him. It tells you a lot about him, you know, Reef and Martin as a group, but also about Martin and how he affected so many people that he probably never met and who've seen him and he maybe had only minor, if any, communication with. It shows a lot about that person, and we're going to certainly miss people like him, you know, with his loss. So thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely. And you know what, the final note I'll say in this, then we'll move on to happier things, is this. It is things like this that make me realize how much this game matters and why I don't waste time with negativity. And because the reality is, some of the best people I know I have met through this community and through this hobby. I only have time for positivity. If anything should teach you that life is fleeting and not to waste it on nonsense junk when you could be becoming better friends with amazing people, do that. Don't waste your time in your life, not to play Jacob Marley, but don't waste your time in your life with that kind of negativity and nonsense when there's so many good people you could be meeting with and having fun with and interacting and building your community. There you go. Okay?
I like it.
All right.
Just to use one of your phrases, I like it.
All right, so on to some happier things. Let's talk about hobby time. So, Mitch, what are you working on, buddy? What's on your table?
Trees, lots and lots of trees, man. It's not even on my table. It's in my basement or my garage. Stuff is drying. So if you're playing the Sylvaneth, and I went over this in my video, and I'm sure if you've looked at the book, and anybody out there, I encourage you to look at some of the various videos about the Sylvaneth. The one thing you're going to realize is, hey, there's lots of units. There's lots of awesome units, and there's this big centerpiece figure, Alarielle. But don't forget about the trees, man, because it's one of the biggest components of your army. It's just as important as any of the other new units or existing units you have. There are so many mechanics to summon new trees. Now, you can go ahead and buy the Sylvaneth wood by buying a bunch of Citadel woods. The new rules for it, it's not 2+ anymore. It's 1 to 3, your choice, which I love. I didn't realize that when I did my video, and it was pointed out to me because I bought only the digital content, and one of my viewers responded to me and told me about it. I think that's great because if it doesn't fit, because there's certain restrictions, you only have to put 1 down. And if you want to, you can put 3 down, and it gives you all this. It's one of the basic mechanics of the Sylvaneth army. So you need lots of trees. I have 4 of the Sylvaneth of the Citadel woods, so I can put down 4 of them official ones. But I'm building 8 more. And I've actually got it. After all this, I've actually got a new idea on what I want to do. There are 8x10 mouse pads that you can get custom made. I'm going to get these mouse pads made for the occasional times that I travel and I can't bring all these woods with me, and just cut them out in the exact pattern with a forest print on it. And that's going to be my mobile transport. And they're probably not going to be cheap. I'm thinking of actually reaching out to Frontline Gaming and see if they want to make their own. And hey, if they make their own, I'll buy them. I don't have to make them then. But the idea is that, make trees. You're going to need lots of forests because there's lots of ways to bring them on the table. And they are incredible with the synergies with the abilities that the Sylvaneth have.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that because so I was at was at Buckeye Battles this last weekend, which was an awesome 9th Age tournament. And I played a guy named Phil who comes from the Mid-Atlantic. And he's an awesome dude. Played an all Sylvaneth army in 9th Age, like all trees, which was and he absolutely pushed my teeth down my throat. So that was fun. He's a great player. But his tree army, other than his dryads, was made of this. So this is heavy gauge wire. He hand built all of his trees and then flocked them. They weren't just like wire. I mean, he did the whole distance. Like he had built the frame out of wire and then flocked them and painted them. They looked amazing. He had a beautiful, beautiful army. And that sealed in my mind. So I actually picked up some of the gauge wire, and this is what I'm going to use to make all my trees for my Sylvaneth wood. Ha! Take that. I'm not buying your stupid woods. I'm not doing it.
All right.
Refuse. I will twist my own trees. That is what I'm doing.
You should have
talked to me. Wire ready to go.
You should have talked to me because my 3D printer is coming in tomorrow, and guess what? One of the first files that I'm going to be using, haunted wood trees.
Sure. Well, look. Honestly, that wire is like $4 at Home Depot, and that's a lot of trees. So I feel like it was a solid investment.
Go make 5 or 8 of them and tell me how many more you want to make before you give me a call and say, hey, can you print me out some trees?
Look, if I can do 6, then that's 2 woods. I'm calling it a day right there. Okay. I'm good.
That's good.
All right. So, but my real hobby time. So I picked up in advance of the Sylvaneth. All my Sylvaneth stuff's over there on the shelf, still sealed to preserve freshness. I picked up the big box, the one that you had gotten in the past. That's like the Dryads and the Branch Wraith and the 3 Tree Men.
Guardians of the Deepwood.
Yep. So I have committed to myself that I'm going to finish all the Dryads before I do anything else because I hate doing lots of troops anymore. Like I'm against it, and so I'm going to do the Dryads, but I couldn't just do the Dryads. Could I just assemble 30 Dryads and call it a day? No, of course not. So I had to convert all the dryads.
What?
Oh yeah. So so let's see here. Well, I don't know if any of these are going to show because they're primed, but here's a good example. So I wanted some that could also be tree revenants if I wanted, so I could use them as dryads or tree revenant groups. So like they have a bunch of extra sticks on their back. All of these do to create the extra sort of like tree look. Like they don't just have the one stick. Most of them have more sticks coming out and extra arms. I put birds in so many of them. Like I just went out and found all the birds I've got and owls and stuff and stuck them up in the branches. They have arms from the Dark Rider kit, the Brolock kit. Okay, which has like these big cool weapons and the bare exposed arms. I have a group of 10 that have Daemonette faces.
Nice.
I have a group of 10 that have the same arms, but then you probably can't see, but that's the Wild Hunter helm, which I thought looked very appropriate with like the horns and stuff, right? So they've got the Brolock swords and then the Wild Hunter helms with the antlers. I think
that looks amazing.
It came out really good. And then I've got 10 that I did as true dryads. I just put the extra sticks on because I did want some of the look of the normal dryad faces too, right? So, but again, you can see like lots of extra branches and stuff like that. And because I had saved a bunch of arms, most of them have, all dryads are using like the massive sized, like the branch nymph arms, like the big claw arms. So you could see there's 3 levels of like Zenithal. But these are the ones. I'm going to start on the normal dryads first to nail the paint scheme, and then we're going to go from there.
So how many you have?
30, 10 of each. I mean, the box comes to 32, right? But I saved like 2. 30 seemed like a nice round number. I can do them in packs of 10. I saved 2 dryad bodies for like other stuff. Like I'll use them in like as base material on other tree men and stuff, whatever.
When you start list building, you're going to see that you might want to get another box or 2. Anywhere between 40 and 50 is the best. Mainly because if you buy a unit of dryads, you want to get 2. You have to buy them twice because you want to go over the 12 to get the extra armor benefit. Unless you're playing small games, but anything 2,000 or 2,500, you're probably going to want to double them up. So you have a little bit of a threshold before they lose that extra bump.
Sure. Well, I'll probably mainly play smaller games, and when I play this army, it will often be Sylvaneth aligned.
Right.
So I'll have Tree Revenants as battle line as well. If I'm using the matched play rules of a Force Org, right? Which I'm not sure my group will necessarily use to its full extent.
Yeah,
so.
I know a lot of people that are using the points as a guide to try to balance the game, but then they're going to play open and free for all. They just want to try and make it a little bit more even in that regard, which I like. I like that as well.
Yeah, we've talked about the modularity of it, and that's very much how I suspect my group's going to do it too. We'll use the points as like a guide. Say, hey, 1,800 beyond that or something. Like we'll probably play 1,500 more often because we tend to play. So one of the reasons I never do battle reports is because we almost always play 4-player games, which are a nightmare to try to battle report. Which I love the new multiplayer support in the General's Handbook. Very excited about that. But so because of that, like doing 2,000 or 2,500 point a person games become pretty insane pretty fast, right? If you've got like even in 8th edition times, that was pretty insane. 5,000 points aside as your regular game. Like imagine a 5,000 point game every week. That's what we were doing. It's pretty intense. So we've kind of said, let's wheel it back. We'll probably be more in like the 1,500-ish area so that way, like you're still talking per side. There's 3,000 points roaming around. So the rules we'll probably use are more like the 1,500. We'll bring in the rules of 1 and say, don't be a dick on your army construction, right? Just pretty standard stuff.
Yeah.
Because
you're golden. That box is perfect for that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to be able to use my toys, and I know so do my friends, right? They didn't necessarily collect their armies to that. They built their armies with the stuff they want. I want everybody to be able to play with the toys they got. And since we're all on the page with that, who cares? Right? Like, there you go. That's what's important. Play the game you want. We've said it 100 times. We'll say it 100. All right. Sorry to wet the whistle there. Okay, so Mitch, we still have no Tom, whose internet decided to die, but that's okay. I am confident that we have all the expertise we need. Let's talk about the shape of things to come. We're 1 year in, and there has been a sea change, right, in the world of Age of Sigmar from where we were a year ago. Oh, what a difference a year has made. This past 6 months have been a lot of progression from Games Workshop. We've seen them engage. We've talked about all that, right? They're going to be they're actually sponsoring the LVO tournament next February, right? The Las Vegas Open Age of Sigmar. Huge stuff on that account. But specifically, what I want to talk about today isn't as much their engagement, which I think is going to continue to evolve and advance, right? Like that just seems open. I humbly await the return of the Golden Demon to the U.S. Bring it back. Have I made this clear?
I have a feeling we might see that. I really do.
If they announce that there is a Golden Demon at Las Vegas, I will book my hotel the next day.
I might be going anyway. I would like to go. If I've already told you.
I'll probably be there too. Shut up. We've got to convince them first. We can't let the cat out. We're all boycotting unless the Golden Demon comes. All right.
All right. I'm with you. United. We are united.
Yes. Okay. Now, at any rate, what I want to talk about is what this book means and what the rules in this mean. Because as has been talked about in some shows, there is some different stuff in here from what we've seen in the other battle tomes. What do we got? We got the normal stuff. You got your story, right? You got a ton of new battle plans. Like the number of scenarios that are getting published are just amazing. You could play for a long time and never play the same scenario twice, which is awesome. But and of course, you got all your army rules and blah, 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 whatever. All that's what we would expect, right? Nothing surprising there. It's all still there. You got a lot of great units and color schemes and, the beautiful paint of the army, the incredible new maps for everything, which I do really love these maps. Like this insane map right here, right? That thing.
That's cool. Yep.
Yeah. So, I love this stuff. There's a lot of good stuff going on here. But that's not what we're going to talk about. What we're going to talk about is this stuff, basically what starts here, right? Which is the stuff that aligns with the General's Handbook. So in this battle tome, what have you got? High level. You can align Sylvaneth. As somebody had pointed out previously, if you choose your allegiance to Sylvaneth, you can't take the order abilities that are in the General's Handbook, right? All you get, if you want the battle line units as tree revenants, then you lose access to these command traits and all this other stuff. But you can align Sylvaneth out of here, and now you have the battle traits, the command traits, right, that are specific to the Sylvaneth, which are very cool. And then, of course, the two revolutionary items to me are one, the Deepwood spell lore, right? So we've got the return of spell lores. We got our casters having unique spells. And then we've got the artifacts, the glades. And what's interesting here is not only do you have the standard artifacts for all your heroes, but as I'm sure you noticed, Mitch, you have the specific arcane items breakdown too, just for the wizards, right?
It looks a lot like 8th edition now, doesn't it?
There are some definite feelings of that in there, yes.
Are we going to get spell cards?
So let's start high level. Are you excited to see the return of these elements? Now, obviously, we make that joke of it feels like 8th edition, but we're still a long way off of that, right? Because you're picking one of these battle traits, one command trait. In general, you're probably going to have you're going to have a couple spells off the spell lore, and you're probably going to have one artifact on one hero. Now, you could have more because you do get to pick additional artifacts if you have War Scroll battalions, right? For every War Scroll battalion you get to add another artifact to a hero. Right. But let's just assume in most cases what we're talking about for your average game is basically one of each of these things, right? So we have a simple level of customization. You can say you're building out who your special characters are and what makes them unique amongst every other Sylvaneth force, right? It's the customization's there, but it's a little lower impact. I'm not choosing a lot of different fiddly bits. So at a high level, are you excited? Do you like this edition of these things?
I'm thrilled. I mean, when AOS first came out and people lamented and sometimes whined and raged about the loss of a lot of this customization, my initial response also was, was shock and confusion. But as I started playing it, I kind of didn't miss it. And I've heard a lot of people that have been positive about AOS say, I would love to have more customization. And I never really thought I cared because I enjoyed AOS for what it was up until this release, General's Handbook, and this new revelation of how battle tomes are going to be organized and what it means to the game. Now that I've read it and I've actually built lists and I've customized things. I am so thrilled that they've done it, because as much as I was enjoying the being able to put whatever I wanted on the table and the active deployment on the fly, which I still like, the idea to be able to customize stuff and put your own little stamp on these things and have a completely unique way of playing, even within the same sub-faction, based on how you wanted to stack things up and the synergies therein. It opens up a far, far greater dimension of playing. I don't know if I'll be spending the amount of hours that like Paul Conti says he spends list building, but I know that it's going to suck me in to just strategize and play with mixing different elements into my list. I think it's great, and I cannot wait to see what comes next with the next Battletomes.
Yeah, and to me, the advantage of it is this: it's not the new way to play; it's a new way to play, right? And there's a big difference there. The thing that I would be afraid of is I would feel negativity if it was suddenly like, this is how the game is, but that's not the case. It's here's another option for the way you can play your game, right? And I've talked so many times for years in various videos about the idea of the power of options in the way the game is played, right? I always go back to 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons, which had a very simple core base, but had all these optional rules in the player's handbook and the DMG for how you could take the game and build it into something much, much bigger, different, complicated, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter. It's not, I don't want to get hung up on the semantics, but into the game that you wanted, right? And I think that we're seeing the same thing here, because none of this is dictum, right? It's like, hey, here's some new here's some new toys for you to play with. And to me, it's a great time to be doing it, because at this year in, we're at a point where we might want to start exploring and trying these new things, right? Like you said, you didn't miss it when you were learning the game, getting into the new stuff, checking, seeing all these new things. But the other thing that's going to do, in my opinion, besides just let us explore these new ways to play, is actually add a lot of character and flavor to these new armies when they come out, right? Because we're going to see this. I mean, I assume you agree. This is the new template going forward.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. I love it. I mean, I would love to see them add on new stuff to old tomes, but the idea it's gonna make me more excited about the new ones that are coming out. Because before it was, maybe there was a few extra units that came out, and it was a lot of fluff and artwork and maps and painting, guides and force structure. Like, this is what an army of this, this would be in the Stormcast, and they even did it in the Sylvaneth. You show what I guess an army of Sylvaneth would look like, a huge army with all this hierarchy and whatnot, which I think is a little crazy, but hey, that's how they want to do it. Yep, it's in there. Can see what armies of the Sylvaneth are, right? And but the idea that there's a whole new set of lore, and again, I mentioned this on my show, my episode yesterday. They're harkening back to old 8th edition. A lot of the spells are named after the spells from that faction, so you have this familiarity. And it's not that they've redid the spells; the spells really feel like the same, like they were. What's the first spell on the spell lore? What's that called again?
Throne of Vines.
Throne of Vines. There you go. It really functions the same way it functioned in 8th edition. It's just Age of Sigmarized.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. You've got Tree Song coming back, right? Which, I mean, is there a more classic element to this army than Tree Song? I mean, it goes so far back. Mm-hmm. And, the ability to sort of walk woods around, right? I mean, that's it's a classic thing. So to me, I can't wait to see, like, we mentioned the Bone Splitters. What are their artifacts going to look like? These things do add, it's as you mentioned, it harkens back, but also adds a lot of new character in there. And so what's their spell lore going to look like? I'm sure we're going to see some savage orky goodness in there. Maybe a return of various other things that spell types that we might have seen before. Various calls to Gork and or Mork. But and going forward, I think about like the Elvish tomes when they come out, right? When we get our sort of probably what'll be like a mist elf, our Ulgu elves, Lugu elves, right? You're going to see all this stuff, and having that there is going to be, especially when they introduce a completely new faction, right? Like with the Sylvaneth with the Bone Splitters, there's already some familiarity we have with them, right? Like you mentioned, they're going to harken back some. But we're going to also see factions over the next year that are more or less new or have a very new feeling to them, right? Not that they're not built off of something that exists. They are, but they're also very new experiences of that thing, right? And I think especially when you get to the elves, that's how it's going to be. So having these additional elements will help give those forces an identity, right? Because what they do through their command traits, through their spells, through their artifacts, it tells you a lot about what the army's all about.
It also changes the game in a little respect. I know you mentioned that it's new ways to play, but it's options. We're seeing some changes in kind of themes of how some of these armies function, and the identity that you just mentioned is very the perfect word. One of the things, for instance, that we see with we saw very specific ways that Stormcast had rules, a lot of strong battle shock defense. There's different things that they could do with the dragon that was blanketing the battlefield with damage, and things with the Sylvaneth are very foreign to what we've seen, even from like the Lizardmen, the Seraphon, or any of the other battle tomes that we've seen. This one is. It's not just the army itself; it's a terrain element as well, and spells and effects that permeate out from the terrain. You can cast spells, and anybody who casts spells near these woods can cause mortal wounds to non-Sylvaneth within 3 inches of the woods. And the ability to summon more woods and then move potentially some of the woods, with some limitations, obviously, gives you such a different mechanic. And when you think about it, there's also some of the special abilities, like, for instance, I think it's like the Lords of the Clan, where you have a series of, it's a battalion that's an element of your army. It's not going to be your only army, but all of your tree men, tree lords, tree lord ancients can together, can then have this chorus. And in doing so, they throw dice. And it's a similar thing to Drika, I think is how you pronounce her name, where her mechanic is to try and kill horde armies with her abilities. So there's a different way that they're doing some of their abilities that are specific now to Sylvaneth. And it'd be very interesting to see how they do it differently for Bone Splitters or any other new mechanic they introduce that's really kind of special for that army. I'm very much looking forward to it, because it'll change how you apply wounds, how you impact other armies, how you kind of spoil what they do, and enhance what you do well and ruin what they do. And that just makes the game more of a challenge. And any new strategies that you might have had, you're going to have to try to rethink.
Yep. No, absolutely. I agree. It's your point about the sort of tactics of it is well taken, right? Because it builds out a bunch of different play styles for each individual force and reinforces those, allows you to steer more into those play styles, right? And again, it's experiencing the game in a new way, not just from the perspective of the rules you get to select, right? Which is fine and fun, but it's also experiencing the new army very, very in a very concrete fashion during the game, right? The way you are playing. So there used to be this idea we had back in 8th. There was a lot of discussion of like avoidance armies, that they're playing a different game, right? Well, now everybody's to some extent playing a different game together, right? Because all the armies have these unique identities and are going about executing their plans, but they also have to then account for what the other army's sort of unique thing is. And we're going to keep seeing that vary all over the place, right? And as those two different strategies interact, I think you're going to have a nice, a really nice sort of, what do I want to say, like an interesting tactical situation emerge.
Yeah,
right.
There's a couple of those options, like the idea that you can summon being different now, and I thought it was broken and really neutered. But the idea to then put a points that you could actually summon, maybe even a behemoth that gives you an extra behemoth on the table beyond the restriction is very big for the undead armies or any other summoning armies. But then I also looked at, like, for instance, the ogres. They have the ability to take behemoths, monsters, as battle line in one of their. Even though we don't know what their characters are. You really can't do it right now because we don't have the battle scroll for the leaders. But the leaders are on either a Stonehorn or a Thundertusk. You could have a herd of Stonehorn and Thundertusk because of what they, how that army works. And there's challenges for that too. It may seem like, oh my God, that's broken. It's ridiculous. It's just an army it's Monster Mash, the old Monster Mash. Well, guess what? The new way of playing in the competitive way, not for open, not for narrative, but in the competitive arena, is also flipping everything around, because a lot of the scenarios require you to take and hold objectives, and you have to have a certain body count to do that. And games could end by turn 3 or even only go turn 5. So if all you have is very few models that are all beefy and butch and they're going to kick everyone's ass, but you can't take an objective, you're not going to win. So you have to really consider what you're playing. There's going to be a different style, and it's also going to be changed up based on what game you're playing, what scenario.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of interesting cross sort of incentives there. So one of the things you mentioned that I want to return to real quick is the idea of the older already existing Battletomes, right? Whether it be like the Stormcast themselves or the whatever the name was of the second Stormcast one. I want to call it Excelsior, but that's not it. It's something like that.
Excelsior?
It's you know what I'm saying? The Dragon Rider guys.
I can't remember either.
Yeah, whatever. The one that had the...
But now I have Jim Lee in my head.
Stanley.
Jim Lee. Oh, God, Jim Lee.
Right. Well, Jim Lee is also a very talented artist, but I don't have any quotes from him. One of the greatest artists of Batman ever. But yeah, so I apologize, everybody. It's very late and it's a very long day. I can't remember the name of the chamber. Extremists. That's what it is. They were named after the Iron Man 3 villains. It's the Extremist Chamber. Okay. So
good save.
Thank you. The file search was running. So anyway, if those are the Fire Slayers or whatever else, are we going to see these kinds of enhancements come out for those existing Battletomes? And if so, how? What do you? What's your guess?
Well, my first thinking would be there's two ways I could think them doing it easily. That doesn't mean that that's the way they'll do it. I think that we could see it in a White Dwarf, where they show additional stuff that could enhance and be an add-on to those. They also could do it through the app, because the app they can put any kind of digital war scroll and in the app you have the allegiances that you can buy. I bought the digital package in the app where you can get the specific Sylvaneth allegiances, and because I use the app so much, it made sense. The idea that you can purchase that for this new tome, it wouldn't take a lot of effort for them to release a packet that was a companion to the already existing ones. So I think that's one way we could also see it, and maybe both.
There you go. You took the words right out of my mouth. I think this is definitely a sort of Ortega Taco Girl situation, right? It's why not both? Like, I think you'll see it in various media. The change to White Dwarf coming in September, right, where we're going to a monthly White Dwarf that's going to be bigger, have battle reports. And one of the things they mentioned was having new games and new special content. And if you remember back to the older White Dwarf, when I think back to like late 90s, early 2000s White Dwarf, you would have whole new ways to play, whole new like ways to build your army showing up in these White Dwarfs, right? It was just unbelievably rich content. And obviously we haven't seen it yet. We don't know that that's what it's going to be or not. But reading the writing on the wall, they're going to this bigger monthly format. When I look at the snippet of what they talked about including, it sure sounded a lot to me like a return to form of that stuff, right? So if I was looking to do it, I would make it in the app available for like a cheap purchase, and I would put it out in White Dwarfs and say, here's the new, this month, the Fire Slayer. Just like any magazine, right? You get different articles and sections. This month you have the Fire Slayer artifacts, command traits, battle traits, and spells of power, right? Whatever, like boom. And there you go. If that's how you want it, you go pick up a single White Dwarf, done. Right? You got all the stuff for your army.
They might even have inserts that you can peel out cut out, or maybe they'll be already pre-punched that you can then use if they start going to this card-based system. We've seen that before.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, many times. It also excites me to see, like, this is a big change in this book, right? It aligns with the General's Handbook, but it's a big change in the way we were doing these battle tomes. And so what excites me about it is, what else are we going to see? Obviously, we're going to see continued expansion on this, but I want to see what other ways we come up with to use these things to play these games, right? By that, what I mean is, when I look at things like the General's Handbook and I see the multiplayer rules, I see the Triumph and Treachery rules, I see the various narrative scenarios, what that makes me think is, let's see some more riffing on this in White Dwarf throughout the next year, right? Taking these sorts of concepts of these battle traits, of these artifacts, of whatever, making them various objectives where these things turn on or off based on a scenario. You know what I'm saying? Like, start synergizing this stuff together. There's an artifact on the board that's an objective, or a couple artifacts. I can go and loot them and take them, and then my guy has them. There's a scenario that when I gain control of an objective, I gain the new, battle trait for my army if it has a particular allegiance, right? So it says, like, if you're in order or any order-based allegiance, right? So what's Sylvaneth, whatever, then if you hold this piece of terrain, it does this. If you hold it to the piece of terrain and you're anything chaos aligned, your leader gains this, right? And we've already seen the scenarios that add new command abilities. So this is just the next obvious step to making these very immersive narrative scenarios, right? You take the Sacred Well, if you're order, it gives you this new ability to heal. If you're chaos, you poison it, and it poisons the land around you and makes it destructive. You get the idea. Like, the stuff writes itself.
You can do it even further. You mentioned narrative. I'm already working on the kind of the skeletal structure of a narrative campaign that I'm going to be running at one of the local shops. And this saved me a whole lot of effort, because all I need to do is get a window into new spells as rewards, new magical items as artifacts to be found as accomplishments, new things to fight over and to gain as part of that overall narrative experience, that campaign experience. I don't have to make them up. I mean, I can still make them up, but all I have to do is go and use some of the ones that already exist, and they make sense. They're there. Right. The rules are there.
Yep. Absolutely. I totally agree. And it's like, it gives you more tools in your toolbox, as you just said, for making your own game, right? And that's been the mantra the whole time, and I'm happy to see it continue to expand. And it's right in line with what we were doing with Mordheim, right? Like, when you look at some of the Mordheim scenarios that we wrote, when we did the Mordheim write-up, there were, in some of those scenarios, you could retrieve magic items. Right. And they were just the same sort of situation as what's going on here. To me, I'm happy to see it, because Tom and I had already sort of seized onto it as a concept of what you could do. I'm not trying to give any credible forethought. I'm sure 100 other people thought of this too. But it's good to see them internalizing that, putting it in here, and making it an option and a tool that the broader audience can play with.
I'm especially happy at the timing. You mentioned this earlier. There's a lot of new people coming on board Age of Sigmar, and points alone isn't the draw. I mean, there's a lot of people I know in one shop. Everybody gave up on Age of Sigmar because they were so competitive, and there's so many things that were foreign, and they are completely coming back. I'm going Friday to a local shop where it just dried up. The only people that were playing Age of Sigmar was me, with whoever I brought. And now they have an entire league that they're doing. They're doing the whole summer league, and everybody's bringing back their armies and using it. And it's not just the points. They're discovering. I'm getting bombarded with questions by these people that I used to play with a few years back, and they're asking me all these different things. And some of this stuff is about stuff that just recently came out, like, for instance, the Sylvaneth book and the General's Handbook. So I'm learning it too, a lot of this stuff with them. But these are new things that are coming out as these new players are coming on board, and it's exciting as a new player, because for the new guard, or the returners as I call them, to see all this really interesting development for the game. And I think that'll really hook a lot of these people, new players and the returning old players.
Agreed. Because even if it's the points that brought them back, the idea that, oh, that exists now, hence I can play, what they're going to find when they flip open that book is a lot more, right? And that's why I think this was a good move. They're going to find their armies, and they're going to find, oh, wait, there's a lot more to explore here. I see. It's not just these points. I also have something that I recognize in these command traits, in these magic items, in these spells, right? I really can make this my own army in a lot of different ways. And so I think that's all good. It will be a sense of discovery for both us who might have been here the whole time for whatever reason, as well as maybe people who are coming back, as well as new people who are trying it for the first time, right? It'll give them a long road of discovery on what should hopefully be a fairly organic learning curve. That would be my hope, at least. So I mean, when I look at it, what I see is over the next 6 months, what are we going to see? We're going to see, more like this with the elves. Probably with some Tzeentch. We're going to probably see the other half of dwarves. We're going to probably see, eventually the Slaanesh part, right? That'll be somewhere tucked in amongst the elves. We'll see a new group of Slaanesh. And here's the funny thing. I am more excited about these releases now because I want to see what else they're going to have, right? What other, beyond hopefully we get some new models for all those. I'm excited about that, of course. But I also want to see how is that army going to get defined, right? It actually ups my interest level for all those new forces because I want to see what do they look like fully fleshed out like this in this new world. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm holding off on certain armies that I want to collect, that my son has asked for us to collect next, because I really want to see what's next. And it's not that I want to only buy the new stuff. I just want to see how it fits.
Yep.
I want to see what that whole look is, and what the combination with the old kits and the new kits are, because they're doing a decent job of meshing the kits together. They didn't leave the dryads behind. There's no the branch wraith is still effective on the battlefield. You're using the tree lords and tree lord ancients, and they even repurposed the Durthu as a spirit of Durthu. Yeah. So that if you built one, which I did, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm just going to use him as an ancient. Well, no, he's a spirit of Durthu now, and he's not even a unique character. He's you can have several of them. And
yeah, the only challenge for me is not to build all of my tree men as spirits of Durthu, because every tree man I have should have the sword. The sword is an essential element of any tree man, in my opinion.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely, dude. Trees with swords that's pretty sweet.
That makes the spirit of Durthu really stand out. I mean, he's the ultimate bodyguard in that list.
He is a face stomper. That's what he is. That dude is not messing around. Yeah. He brings the pain. So overall, yes, I think that it when I look at sort of what is the shape of things to come, I'm more excited now after this Battletome than I ever have been, and I agree with you. It's not just I want to see some kind of new sexy. I do when we do the light elves, which are rumored at, right, or the Phoenix elves, whatever, from Phoenicium in the campaign. Like, we're clearly getting hints that, like, hey, by the way, Phoenix elves are a thing because we included this town called Phoenicium in the summer campaign. So we're probably going to do the Phoenix elves at some point real soon. I want to see that, and that's fine. But I also want to see, what do things like the Devoted of Sigmar look? How are we going to take those flagellants, those warrior priests? What are the new units that are going to join them? What's their new attitude and sort of footing going to be? What are the artifacts going to be? What are the spells going to be? How are they going to? What are those shared battalions going to be between them and the Stormcast? Right? We saw that image going way back to the first Age of Sigmar book of like the flagellants, the warrior priests, the war altar, and a bunch of Stormcast. That was like in the first book, right? So it's been a promise that we've long been waiting on, to see those battalions that included all that stuff. Good, make it happen.
And I also want to see something like, for instance, the new Steamhead dwarves. Let's find some way to mesh them where it makes sense with the friggin' Fire Slayers, because they're friggin' dwarves, man, and it doesn't seem to be a connection right now. They might as well be a friggin' alien army.
Right.
To find a way to make a new army of dwarves their own, but then combine them would be nice too. There's got to be a way to do that, as well as obviously other faction types.
Absolutely, and it would be the easiest thing to include those battalions that would mesh them with the Fire Slayers, that would mesh them with the Iron Swelled Arsenal, right? And just it would be a simple thing to have some rules that just draw them all together as one cohesive force. Not even that hard, right? Like if you meet the rules for this battalion, all Steamhead Duardin count gain the Fire Slayer keyword, and all Fire Slayers gain the Steamhead Duardin keyword, or whatever. That's literally how simple you could write that rule to suddenly make them mesh together. Just like that. Right?
Well, look how easy the Stormcast and the Sylvaneth work together.
Right.
Just one battalion scroll.
Yep, exactly. All right. Well, Mitch, it is about 2 a.m. here on the East Coast, and it has been a long, long day. Do you feel as though we've covered some exciting things for the shape of things to come? Overall, let's do this. Thumbs up, thumbs down, 1 through 10. How excited for the shape of things to come based on the new Sylvaneth stuff?
Well, I don't want to just say 10 because, I mean, there's always, little bits of concern and little bits of wonder and questions, but definitely higher up. It's got to be a strong 9. I mean, I'm glad to see that they're putting in mechanics and putting in things that will help with the anticipation of what's coming next and help grow the game, help change the meta, help, unravel different strategies and not make the game static or stagnant. Just the idea that they're doing this means that there's a wealth of new releases to look forward to, and for quite a while.
Agreed, completely. And I'm with you. I'm gonna as well say solid 9. Thumbs up, solid 9. The shape of things to come is a positive shape. I think that is what we're seeing here. And bring on that Sylvaneth Battletome, baby. I'm excited to see what I'm going to get. That's all I'm saying. I've already set that aside. It's my next big. That's my next big go in. I know when the Dark Princess returns, it's going to be a beautiful day in the mortal realms. All you forces of order, destruction, and death better just prepare yourselves, because the Lord of Pleasure is coming back, and oh boy, is it going to be a good time. There's going to be a party all across the realms.
Please let the cover picture be the one exposed boob.
I think that I like just bring it on. I want to be deluged. I want to be buried. I'm going to Scrooge McDuck in boxes of new Slanesh models if it happens. That's what I'll say. So there we go. All right. For all of you out there, I know this was a very late show, a very different show. I appreciate very much you sticking with us here late at night, or perhaps early morning where you are. It could be depending on where you are in the world, and if you're or whatever. As always, we always endeavor never to miss a week, and as long as I'm alive and here and conscious, we will bring you the show. Special thanks to Mitch for staying up very late and joining me for this show. No thanks to Tom for his crappy internet and then joining us for 30 seconds and then dropping.
Convenient.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That guy, he's a shady character. To all of you out there, of course, as I said, thank you very much for watching. As always, we'll see you next Wednesday.